first guest is an award-winning slam poet and a stark conservationalist. He is known as the Klute. Look at that! Wow.
Oh wow! Look at that.
We're watching the show.
This is crazy.
This is a luxury. We have monitors and we're watching the show.
We are.
We can see what you can see.
This is like monitors that you have set up for poetry, except video, which is terrifying. Because I'm looking at myself and I'm like, oh man, I should have worn more than Nixon's shave stick before I came out.
Well, it's a local talk show, so food and drink.
Look at it in post.
Oh yeah,
This, by the way, Diet Coke is the official drink of shark conservation. I don't know. That's actually not true.
We'll get into They're dumping Diet Coke by the gallons into the Pacific.
Yeah.
The cholesterol.
They were trying to break up the Deepwater Horizon spill by just dumping Diet Coke into it. But,
so if anytime you see me drift off frame, just let me know.
Okay.
I'm watching this on the monitors. But you are a politically savvy person. You just
I am.
These toys we concocted to comment on the election. What do you think of what has happened?
Well, I'm not entirely surprised, unfortunately. I was fairly bullish on Hillary winning before. Probably, I think the James Comey thing, though, the FBI director dropping that, oh, by the way, we're reopening the investigation.
Sure.
And there's nothing new in it, and then it's like people who were already on the fence and already kind of had a negative opinion, but were willing to bite the bullet. We're just like, the hell with this. I'm either going to stay home, which is what I think a lot of people did, or they were like, whoa, what do I have to lose? And well, the answer is everything. But they chose to go with Cheeto Jesus. And
Cheeto Jesus?
Yeah, I can't take credit for that one. That was actually a conservative columnist, Eric Erickson, or as Jon Stewart used to call him, Eric, son of Eric. But yeah, that's his moniker for our president-elect.
Wow.
And I think that's as good as I'm going to call him for the next 4 years.
So, do you think when you say we lose everything, the knee-jerk reaction a lot of media had was, well, I mean, how can this affect the common man's life? It's just another president in office. Maybe some things will happen, but ultimately, it's just another.
I think it's more than that. Unfortunately, I think there's people say, oh, the checks and balances, Congress and the Senate. Well, that's not true. We don't have those checks and balances because they're of the same political party. Mm-hmm. And you've got a neophyte in the White House who doesn't know how the functions of government work, and so he's going to get steamrolled by a Republican Congress. And basically the president was the check and balance on Republican Congress and Senate. Now that doesn't exist, and it's going to even exist less because we're going to have a 5-4 conservative Supreme Court again. So whatever crazy idea that is hatched out of the fever swamps of the Heritage Institute, or that's the best case scenario. If you look at like these right-wing think tanks that exist in Washington, they might be the least objectionable ideas that come out of a Trump administration. I mean, you look at the people who are being nominated for it. You have John Bolton, Secretary of State, is being kicked around. John Bolton is a terrifying man. He wants to go to war with Iran. And Trump is saying, like for instance, the Khans, Captain Khan who died, Captain Khan would be alive. Well, maybe not, because there's going to be new Captain Khans.
Sure.
There's going to end, Iran's not Iraq. It's a much more robust military.
Sure.
That's been funded by Russia for a very long time.
And there's the letter difference in N and a Q.
Yeah, exactly. N is much scarier than Q, because Q you hardly ever use.
Right.
If you're playing Scrabble, you need a U and the Q, and you need to make your letter combo, and you can't do it. N goes everywhere. And N also stands for, what did our former president call it? Not Bush the second. Nuclear.
Nuclear. Oh, okay.
So Iran
I was afraid what N word you were fishing for.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
And Iran, is for whatever shortcomings the nuclear. Now I'm doing it. The deal had with Iran to prevent them from getting atomic weapons. Yeah. That's now going to be on the wayside, and now Iran's going to be like, what do we care?
What do you think about the domestic social policy? I think Rachel Maddow, as soon as Trump kind of locked it in and said, well, there goes Roe v. Wade. Like her knee-jerk reaction was that. Is there validity to those concerns?
No, because again, he mentioned Oberfeld, which in his interview with 60 Minutes this weekend, and he mentioned how gay marriage is a decided Supreme Court decision.
If it's a law, he said there's nothing I can do about it.
Right,
Books.
but again, that's not true. One Supreme Court decision could overturn just. I want to say it was Brown versus Board of Education overturned Plessy versus Ferguson.
Wow. Sure.
And so Plessy versus Ferguson was decided law, and then it became not decided law when Brown versus Board. Roe versus Wade, it's totally on the chopping block. And then what happens is it goes to the states. Remember, that's all Roe versus Wade did. Some states had legal abortion, some states didn't. Now, and then basically Roe versus Wade decided that under the I can't remember the concept, but it's like basically equal just jurisdiction.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if California can't have one law that New York doesn't have, and Texas can't have something that countermands law in Florida for the big issues, for the things that fall under the Constitution, the amendments of the Constitution.
Sure.
That's all Roe versus Wade decided. If you get 5 judges and someone pushes a court case, it gets to the Supremes, and they decide to push back and say Roe versus Wade doesn't apply to this constitutional principle anymore, then you're back to a situation where states decide. And you can name 10 states off the top of your head that will immediately overturn it.
Right.
Mississippi, Alabama, Kansas, Montana, Tennessee, Arkansas,
Sure.
Louisiana. Indiana, I mean, perfect example. Indiana, interestingly, was the only state outside of the South back in the 1920s and 30s that had a significant Klan membership.
Really?
Yeah. Indiana is basically the South by the Great Lakes.
Wow. And
so
this Breitbart connection to the Klan is legit or no?
It's totally legit. You look at.
I can't wait to see the comments under this video.
Yeah, I know. No, I hate to say, but the analogy. I was at a poetry slam up in Kingman earlier this year. And I had this poem.
Okay.
Up in Kingman, and it was. It's the poem's called "The Last 100 Days," and I theorize what would happen in the first and last 100 days of a Trump presidency.
Wow.
And I'm glad it's in print because now it'll be in 4 Chambers 04. It was in the AZ Daily Sun 2 weeks before the election, so it'll be really good evidence at my show trial should things ever get that bad.
Now, Kingman, there is a Klan population there.
Kingman, yeah. If Kingman is, I don't think I'll say no, it's Klan. I definitely think it's white supremacist.
Okay, yeah.
But so I do this poem, and this girl comes up to me afterwards, and she says, Trump's not Hitler. And I'm like, okay, well, you obviously we're listening to the poem, so thank you. But Trump's not Hitler. I was like, well, okay, he's not the Hitler of 1939 or 1942 or 1943. He could be the Hitler of 1922 when he became politically active. Nazi Germany wasn't built in a day. It wasn't like Hitler popped up and been like, hey, everyone.
Right.
Hey, every Germans, we're going to kill the Jews now. I don't know what that accent was. I think drifted into
warning. He's like, wait a minute.
Yeah, wait a minute. I just dropped this mustache.
Evil.
We should kill Jews. No, that's not how it works. So this could be, I forget, the Overton window, where things just go completely upside down. And
comedian Rick Overton.
No, not it was Rick Dukeman. That would be the one I wanted. But no, the Overton window is basically the concept that things get so absurd that the absurd becomes real.
Oh, sure, okay.
And so this could be it, and it's going to take pushback from if it comes out to that we're overreacting and this doesn't happen. And there aren't registries and bans and all these other things that we think and he said is going to happen. But if we don't have that, it'll only be because we have a motivated opposition party who is willing to stand up against Trump's agenda.
And what do you, as somebody savvy and socially conscious and active, what is your advice to your peers who are presumably now rioting in the streets or at home crying? That is the spectrum.
Right, yeah, right. That's I have my emotional breakdown like 4 or 5 days after the election. Get it out of your system now. Protest, be in the streets, remind him that this is not acceptable. But remember, no legislation is passed yet. Nothing has gone to the floor of the Congress. Nothing has gone to
Do
the
something present yet.
Right. When that happens,
Yeah.
be motivated, be in the streets, but more importantly, be on your legislators like a ticks on a dog. Make sure that they know that your voice needs to be heard and you will not be silent. Be in the streets, but it's more important to be in the voting booth and be in your neighborhoods and organize and talk to other people that need to know what's actually happening. Because if they rely on the media, we relied on the media to tell us the truth in this election, and they let us down. There was, I can't remember her name, she's from CNN. She tried to gaslight, I can swear, right?
Yeah.
She tried to gaslight the shit out of people on Twitter.
Oh, yeah.
Trying to say, what's that?
It's YouTube.
I don't know if we're running a clean show. We got the monkeys up here. The monkeys were wholesome and clean to the filthy, dirty Beatles. Ringo started doing
drugs. Oh my God, let's not even talk about Herman's Hermits.
Oh my God, Herman's Hermits. It was like the last days of Pompeii with Herman's Hermits. With I totally forgot I was going to go there.
We got off on a little.
Yeah, we got off
a little groovy bend there.
Yeah. Woo!
Nobody wants to know what happened to
Thank you.
Clark
Some of the audience.
What happened to that sixth guy? Anyway.
He's buried in a shallow grave outside of Bakersfield. But if you gaslighting us saying, oh, the media covered it. And it's like, oh, really? You got to the bottom of all the issues? Hey, where's Trump's tax returns? You know, and why are we not hearing more about the Russians? And a Russian advisor to Putin has admitted that they were the ones who were giving information to Julian Assange and WikiLeaks. And Julian Assange, I'm sorry, rapist Assange, because again, Julian Assange, if you're watching this, go to Sweden, face those charges, and let's see how well you do. That's why you're in an Ecuadorian embassy right now. Not because Obama and Hillary want to drone strike your ass, but because you're a rapist. Yeah. Hi, Julian.
If this was the Daily Show of 2008, there would have been rousing applause after that. What happened?
Everyone's quiet. Everyone's like...
Well, I think
everyone's still shell-shocked.
I was going to say, I think there is a bit of they're riveted by your awareness and knowledge and passion of it, as a lot of us are. And we can transition out of that now to say that I know you're so politically savvy because you're a slam poet. I've seen you deliver poetry as I have. And so what is the origin of the Klute in the slam world?
Okay, do you want like the name, or do you want to know?
I want to know everything. I want to the full expose.
Well, the name, so
this is your 60 minutes, right?
This is right, yeah, this is mine. I need
more like 2025.
Yeah, if it was a Barbara Walters special, I would just be seen through gauze and Vaseline on the lens.
Absolutely,
But no, so the Klute started off as Poetry Slam, got involved with it back in Florida.
And let's do this 101 for somebody watching, because now they're red hot with rage.
Yeah.
Because you're such a liberal extremist.
Yes.
What would they know how would they know slam from your Walt Whitman, your Cummings?
Well, slam poetry was a gimmick. It's a gimmick.
It's a gimmick.
Yeah, and it was slam poetry was a contest that was invented in the 1990s by a construction worker by the name of Mark Smith.
So
do that again. Slam poetry was I like that. Let's cut. Let's break. Slam poetry was a competition invented in the 1990s by a construction worker by the name of Mark Smith.
So what?
Thank you. So you're supposed to shout that after you hear Mark Smith's name. And basically it was a way for him to get people who would not normally be interested in poetry to come to poetry readings. So he turned it into basically a bar contest. People would get up on stage, they'd read their own work, there'd be no props, costumes, musical accompaniment. They'd read their own work, the audience would judge it, and then everyone would be engaged. The audience, the poets, the judges themselves. And it's mushroomed over the years where it's been performed on every slam poetry contests have happened on every continent, including Antarctica.
Whoa.
So I was telling people about that today. In Antarctica, the research stations, they don't close down. But they are completely isolated between, I think, like May and September on our calendar, because that's when their winter is.
Okay.
And so there's absolutely nothing to do other than do scientific work, maintain the base, and you're trapped there. You have shitty internet because you're at the bottom of the world.
Right.
All
All the best shows are on summer hiatus.
All the best shows are on summer hiatus.
Right.
You can't get them downloaded. There are no windows. They have to block out the windows because the actual ambient starlight can screw with the scientific experiments they're doing.
Okay.
And so they kept themselves interested. They threw a poetry slam. That wasn't a good one, I imagine, but I don't know that Antarctic research. Man, the lawsuits are going to go flying.
At least you've sufficiently pissed off both sides.
Yes, exactly.
The conservatives are seething, and now there are liberal slam poets that are like, he's completely undermined everything we've done in Antarctica.
That's the Antarctic outreach. And so, but there's one every continent, and it's been very. There are slam poets who've achieved great levels of success. Saul Williams is probably the most prominent example. He's had a movie done. He's been on, on other talk shows, other lesser talk shows around the world.
Thank you. Yes.
Released cut albums. He's performed at venues large and small. So
who laughed at that?
Yeah,
I had
I know.
a delayed reaction to that. Wait a minute. My mom. Okay.
And so slam is basically just a very kinetic, I would say, modern form of poetry that is performance-based, and I think is more engaging than your Ogden Nash is, or your, I like Whitman, obviously. I think he's a great poet.
But it is performance-driven.
It is performance-driven,
Those poets,
yeah.
Traditional poetry is perceived to be on the page, we read it quietly, intimately, alone, or in a small round,
Right.
or something like that. Slam is loud, it's bombastic, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
It's barroom.
It's barroom, it's a competition. And I think the competition pushes the poets, I think, to be better, because my ex-girlfriend, also a slam poet, she encapsulated poetry slam, I think, for me perfectly. Poetry slam lets you know that you suck and just how much you suck, and then you get that kind of feedback right away, and then you push it to the next level. You go, okay, what could I have done to connect to the audience better? What could I have done to make my artistic vision better received?
Okay.
And if you care about those things. Some people don't care. Some people just they go up, they do what they want to do. They're happy with that.
Sure.
For me, the competition exists for a reason. I want to know how people feel. I want to know that I'm reaching them. I want to know how well I did.
And when did you first see it and get this sense of I'm all in with this?
Well, it was right toward the end of the 1990s, and I was living in Florida, and I just got divorced, and I was bored, and I was like, well, what can I do? What is the thing that will make me, or make me get out of the house?
Okay.
And so I was like,
we're in a Clinton America.
We're in a Clinton America. It's like the 90s.
Foo
Fighters, fucking Sixpence None the Richer has never been bigger, and that Hey Leonardo song where I just want to strangle.
Oh.
God, I hate that song
What?
so much. I would love if I could
That's
find.
a Cable Guy reference in a song.
No, sorry, no, screw that. If I could find every copy of that song and fire it out of a cannon into the sun,
you would Milli Vanilli it.
I would
burn it in the streets.
Down the memory hole, 1984, Room 101. That's my Room 101 from 1984. Is listening to Hey Leonardo like.
I have no viewers left.
Yeah.
You've alienated everyone.
What was that? Sister Mary Grace, or where the hell that band was that did that song? I don't care.
Oh, I don't know. Sister Hazel was that band?
I don't know. They're all like, they all had frosted tips and
They didn't all have frosted.
But so I
Mixed cereal opportunity from the late 90s. The
frosted tips. Oh my God, that would have been
Sugar Ray
frosted tips. Wow.
Eat it every morning.
Yeah.
Good night, everybody.
We're done.
Okay, I got a screensaver that popped up here.
Oh.
That'll be a break. I thought I turned that off. Okay, now we know it's good. All right. Crusty back here. All right.
Okay, we managed to recover all the jokes after we made that perfect joke at the end.
Right. We'll pick it up right here. Hold on. Good night, everybody.
Yeah, all right. So we've told all the jokes that we're going to be able to tell. So I saw it on NPR, and then I saw because
Slam. You heard
Slam. I heard Slam on NPR,
okay.
and then I saw it because who has their finger on the pulse of 90s youth culture? But 60 Minutes. So I saw it on 60 Minutes, and I'm like, you know what? I can do this. So I looked it up. There was a poetry slam. I went down there. I judged my first night. And then I was like, oh yeah, I can totally kick these people's asses.
How'd you find it? You were in Florida.
Yeah, I was in Florida. I honestly don't remember. I think I might have asked some people who knew about it.
Sure.
I was in the goth scene, and there was only just one drag in West Palm Beach called Clematis that people would go to if you wanted to do something that was young and hip and 90s oriented. and Klute cigarettes and
Mm-hmm.
blue jeans and
Espresso at 3 a.m.
espresso and Moby Grape and all this other stuff.
Gotcha. Okay.
And so I went down there and competed judged, and then I came back the next week, very cocky, and got my ass beat. I think I came in like dead last.
Wow.
But I was hooked, and I met a lot of people some people I still know from those days. I'm still friends with.
Wow.
So where the Klute name comes from was before the internet, there was these things called bulletin board systems.
Okay.
And they were like the internet, but they were basically small, all text based, and you had to have a phone line to get connected.
Oh, online.
Online, yeah.
I'm thinking bulletin boards.
Well, that's what the idea is. It's a bulletin board, but it's electronic bulletin.
Okay.
And so you didn't use your real name.
Sure.
And so
There's probably half a dozen hipsters that still use them.
yeah, I wonder if there is. There's a Facebook group for old school South Florida BBSers, which just shows there's a Facebook group for everything.
Absolutely.
So I decide to sign up, and I put my name down, and my friend's like, no, you can't use your real name, you have to use a handle. And so I was debating what name I would choose, and I chose the Klute, which was a very obscure character in a very obscure British science fiction show called Blake 7. Blake 7, the concept was basically the Federation from Star Trek meets 1984 Orwell style, and these people were resistance fighters and blah, blah, blah. So I signed up, and one day I kept hating the way the announcer was signing my name up, or saying my name when he announced me to the stage. So I changed my name to the Klute. And then he's like, all right, we have the Klute, and I won that night.
Whoa.
And so, okay, well, I'm going to keep that. So then I moved
like
to
Arizona. Like a baseball jersey that never gets washed or something.
Yeah, exactly, right.
Yeah.
So I moved to Arizona, and I signed up for my first poetry slam here, and I signed up as the Klute. And everyone had assumed that my real name was Klute because there was a poet from Vancouver by the name of Shane Koizan who at the time was slamming under the name The Shane. So everyone thought I was being pretentious like him, and that my name was actually Klute. And so, because no one knew me from outside of the slam,
Sure.
they were like, oh, well, his name's obviously Klute, call him that. And I was like, well, actually, my name's Bernard, but Klute's fine. Just easier.
Sure.
Two people know me. So it didn't really.
Your name was Cosmo Klute.
Right, I could have said anything at that point. It didn't really stick until after there was a poetry slam. So after 9/11, there was a poetry slam, and I met this girl, and we had gotten involved very fast because everyone was involved in terror sex relationships. We all thought we were going to die, so we all had to pair up before we were getting exterminated. And
sure.
And so one night we're messing around, and she moans out my name, but she moans out Klute. And then I was like, oh yeah, we're sticking with that. I like that. That's much better. That's much better than my real name. So that's that.
We all need a cigarette after that story.
Yeah, exactly.
Fantastic. So how does your love of slam and your eventual success become this shark conservationalism embodied here in the book we're plugging?
Yeah, so
Chumming the Waters.
Chumming the Waters. And this is actually, so I grew up in South Florida, and I grew up around sharks. The first shark I ever saw was actually a small-toothed sawfish. And I used to belong to a beach club called the Breakers. And the Breakers had a buoy line that was where you would go, where you were allowed to swim out to. Now, when I went back as an adult, it seemed closer inshore. Back when I was a kid, it seemed way far out there. And the water was at least 20, 30 feet deep when you got to the end of the buoy line. And as young children do, they test each other and they go do this. I challenge you to do this. One of the challenges was swimming to the buoy line. So I swam out to the buoy line, and I looked down, and I'm holding onto the rope, and I look down, and there's this sawfish, just massive. And again, water amplifies things by 30%, and I'm also 9 years old, so I just see basically a sea monster swimming underneath me. And if you've never seen a sawfish, open up another window and Google small-toothed sawfish. And I got scared, and I immediately swam back to shore. And
the water amplifying everything by 30%.
Yeah,
is why I only have sex in kiddie pools.
That's a very
moving on. Also, Klute and the Breakers, great bar band name.
Klute and the Breakers, yeah, that would be such goddamn Jimmy Buffett cover band shit, It'd be like, well, this is our 19th request for Margaritaville, so But yeah, so I swam back to shore, and that was like my first experience with a shark, and I blew it. Especially
Erupted that much.
But no, I wasted an opportunity upon retrospect, because since that time, small-tooth sawfish are now on the endangered species list.
Wow.
They're very rare. They used to be very common, and they're very rare now. And so when I got involved in poetry, it's always been very satirical, and satire has a half-life of like, a Spinal Tap drummer.
Sure. Yep.
And that's a Buffy reference, by the way. So I said, well, I wanted to do something with my poetry that just wasn't making people laugh and think. I'd like to think I do that. But what I wanted to do was use the one thing I was good at, slam poetry, and turn it into a way to help the creatures that I love. So I wrote a few shark poems, and then in 2015, me and my friend Mark, we went out to Guadalupe Island, New Mexico, to dive with great white sharks. And let's see, there you go. You can kind of see that a little better under the lights.
Yeah.
I
may edit a still of the cover.
Cool, perfect. And so when I was there, the head of the organization called Fins Attached, we were going on a research dive with them. And so I mentioned I'm a slam poet and I write poetry. And he said, "Have you ever written poetry about sharks?" I'm like, "Yeah." And they're like, "Hey, would you like to come out to our fundraiser in Denver and do a performance for us?" I was like, "I'll go you one better. I'll do that. But how about if I write a book of shark poetry and then I donate all the profits to you?"
Wow, very cool.
And he was like, "Okay, yeah, we'll do that." So Alex Antonio and Dr. Alex Antonio, and he's like, "Yeah, we'll do that." And so I've basically been writing. This is a chapbook. This is a small teaser, chunking the waters, if you will.
The EP for your eventual LP.
Right. And so this is 9 poems.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is 9 poems.
9 poems.
It seems like this is a substantial read.
Well, it is, because my poems have a tendency to be a bit longer than I tried submitting some poems to some contests this year, and they have these 40-line limits, and I'm like, God damn it! My poem's like 180 lines or something like that.
Sure.
And so it's been very successful. I've actually been able to, with matching donations from my company and meeting my production costs, which were $400, but I've still been recouping my production costs, I've still been able to donate $1,500 to shark conservation.
That's fantastic. We all know that there is the presumed misconception that sharks are the thugs of the sea.
Right.
The doo-doo.
Yeah, exactly.
Or I'm trapped on a buoy,
right,
nearly nude for an hour and a half, and if I could just reach the flare gun.
Yeah, which it took me, for those of you playing at home, we're talking about the movie The Shallows with Blake Lively, which I got to review for the local nerd blog, Nerdvana Media.
Oh, very cool.
And so I saw the movie, and I'm sitting there, and the entire time I'm sitting there, I'm like, sharks don't do that. Sharks aren't they can't, no.
The person in front of you in the theater is like...
Yeah. But no, I really enjoyed the movie. But yeah, sharks have a
You're
really...
Turn around, Goody Coons.
Yeah. You shut your mouth there, Ebert or Siskel, whichever dead man you are. Oh, too soon?
No, not for me.
Okay. They're both dead now, aren't they?
They are both.
Yeah, they're both
gone. Yep.
They're both reviewing films in hell.
Yes.
Or heaven, depending on what you believe.
It'd be sad if one of them was in heaven and the other was in hell.
But I can imagine the intro for that. They used to have like them walking into the theater,
right?
And they could have one of them. Let's just assume Siskel's in heaven and Ebert's in hell.
Fair enough.
And so Siskel's like, he's putting on his halo, and he's getting a bucket of popcorn with fresh, like the best popcorn in the universe with the best butter and salt. Popcorn. And then like Ebert's like,
salted with Lot's wife.
Yes.
Oh man!
And then Ebert's in hell, and like the devil's like pouring shit into his popcorn, and he's like, instead of straightening his tie, he's getting coals jammed into his eyes.
Oh man!
And then later on, Siskel will be like, "I really enjoyed this film," and then Ebert would be like saying, "Ah! Ah!" That's all
this is the Klute and Russ's pitch for an Adult Swim series. You heard it here. It could happen. Siskel and Ebert in hell. But you reviewed the movie.
I reviewed the movie, and it actually was not as exploitive as it could have been. The shark of The Shallows was kind of like the shark. It was like the Indominus Rex from Jurassic World.
Yeah.
It was a killer, and it was purposefully killing, but it wasn't like there's a fine line to walk between that, and it
I didn't
wasn't.
say, was there a majesty to the shark, you would say?
Yeah, the shark was definitely like, you know, people should not, like, the Blake Lively character should not have done any of the things that she was doing in the film. Like, she's by herself at twilight,
Right.
next to a rotting whale carcass. And like any marine biologist will say, hey, don't do that.
Sure. But I'll say what else
Sharks-
I'm doing a Friday night.
Yeah, I know. And, you know, not telling anyone where you were and all this other stuff. And so, and there were like live marine mammals swimming away from the area. And one of the things that if you see marine mammals swimming away, probably you want to get to shore as soon as possible because they are better adapted to know when things are probably going to be difficult for you.
Sure.
And I don't use the term shark attack because if a shark attacks you, you're going to know it. There are shark attacks. There are sharks that will go after people, not purposefully, but they'll make an attack run on a person, injure them to the point of maiming or killing. Paul de Gelder, Australia, he's a shark conservationist, former Australian Navy diver, lost his arm and a leg to a bull shark while he was doing a training exercise in Sydney Harbor. That was an attack because the bull shark was like, I'm going to go at you, I'm going to eat you. But again, not that he was a person, that the bull shark just like, you are prey.
There's a nature
Right.
component to this.
But most what we would qualify as attacks are just bites. A shark will come up. A shark doesn't have, real quick, shark biology. Sharks have 7 senses, whereas we have 5. We have sight, hearing, taste, touch, and smell. Sharks have those, but they also have something called electroreception, which is they can detect small electrical fields, or large electrical fields as well.
Okay.
And they also have something called lateral line sense. Lateral line sense is really cool because what it is, it detects pressure conditions in the water. As the shark's swimming through, it can detect when something is moving in the water near it, but out of its line of sight, or out of the water, it can't smell it. So when sharks engage their mouth, they're actually engaging their last sense, the last useful sense of them, which is taste. 9 times out of 10, when someone's bitten by a shark, the shark's going to go, oh, this is not what I wanted. Spit it out. Now, unfortunately, when you're dealing with a 3,000-pound animal that has a row full of enamel sharpened to cut through whales, humans probably are going to take a little bit of a hit on that one.
That little nibble.
That little nibble to them is basically massive, go to the hospital thing for us.
If only there was a Super Size Me for sharks, where one wily shark could play a documentary saying, we don't want to eat this stuff.
Exactly.
It's only available on every corner, but we don't want to eat it.
And that's what I try to do with the books. I try to demystify, humanize sharks to a point where there are the 9 poems in this book, and there have been more written since then, but all of them show that sharks are basically just living in their environment. The only one in this book that even mentions purposeful attacks is a kind of a group of bull sharks come across the wreck of the Deepwater Horizon, the oil rig that sank, and are like, oh, this is prophecy fulfilled, we're going to attack. Because, and again, it's a fantasy idea. Sharks don't have any animus toward us any more than they have animus toward dolphins or whales. But all of this is basically just kind of philosophical. What does it mean to be a shark? And hopefully, from my perspective, I'm giving the sharks a voice that they wouldn't normally have.
If people want to hear that voice, where can they find this book? Let's say they don't live in Phoenix, they can't see you personally.
They can find it on Amazon.
Okay.
They can find it at Barnes & Noble. They can order it directly through me. I have a GoFundMe campaign. The GoFundMe campaign is Saving Sharks with Poetry and Drinks. Because if you buy the book through the GoFundMe, you'll get a recipe for an exclusive drink, a tiki drink that I created.
Wow.
Called the Blue Guadalupe, which is inspired by my expeditions down to Guadalupe Island in Mexico.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
So I understand you're going to be performing. Will it be one of these pieces later?
One of those poems I will perform, yeah.
All right, so the Klute will be back with us later this episode, but in the meantime, it is the Klute, everybody.